Hey everyone, how are you? David Franco here from davidfranco.com/Indiegogo as well as davidfranco.com/Mac Pro contributors. Both of those links are right below for your convenience. And that's exactly what today's video is all about because I am way ahead of schedule in regards to the whole Mac Pro ordering process because I have some great news. But before we get to that, let me give a huge shout out to Lewis Beasley. No relation to Pam. Maybe. But seriously, Lewis was nice enough to contribute to my Mac Pro campaign on Indiegogo, and for that, I am extremely grateful. So Lewis, thank you so much for your ongoing support. I truly do appreciate it. So Lewis Beasley can be found over at youtube.com/streamlewis, and he's basically a geek with personality. He's very passionate about technology, kind of like me. I love my tech. He is all about innovation, and finally, last but not least, he is huge on engineering of music. Lewis's ultimate goal on YouTube is to motivate others to understand technology, the uses of technology, and how technology can better their lives. And of course, on Lewis's YouTube channel, again, youtube.com/streamlewis, you can find all kinds of tech goodness such as product reviews, giveaways, personal vlogs, music creation, and much more. But you know what? Why am I explaining this when you can just watch it for yourself? Enjoy this quick clip.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Lewis Beasley from PCAddicts.com, YouTube.com, and whatever .com channels and sites you can find me on. Now, today I'm going to be talking with you guys about multi-monitors, and I'm just going to kind of give you a peek into my window of how I use multi-monitors. Now, multi-monitors can be an intimidating thing to some people, but truthfully, it's one of the most easiest things to set up and one of the most beneficial things you can do in multitasking on the computer.
And there you go. Lewis is not only a great supporter of mine because I've actually talked to him in the past, but he seems to make excellent content as well. So definitely check him out. His YouTube link is right below. All right, so getting to the best part of the video, let's talk about my Mac Pro and the exact build to order configuration I went for. Because as of today, February 27th, you're seeing this on the 28th, my Mac Pro is officially ordered and acknowledged by Apple. Now, I didn't go the usual routes of ordering it online through apple.com. Because fortunately, I have a direct contact with someone at Apple and I obtained a discount. And that's all I can really say about that. So let's just get into the details. What exact configuration did I go for? Well, let's start out with the processor. I went with a 6-core, yes, 6-core model, 3.5 gigahertz, Intel Xeon E5 with 12 megabytes of L3 cache. Yes, I'm looking down at my notes. There's no way I can memorize that. Okay, maybe I can, but I didn't want to mess it up for this video. So yes, I ended up going with the 6-core over the 4-core because I didn't expect to get that many funds that quickly. So I figured, why not bump up my specs? So this will definitely benefit my video work. And honestly, I read all over the internet that the 6-core is kind of the sweet spot. So I cannot wait to experience the insane power behind this thing and see how it truly benefits my workflow. Next up, let's talk RAM. I went with 16 gigabytes of 1866 megahertz DDR3 ECC RAM, which in other words is 4 sticks of 4 gigabytes. Now I love Apple, that's no secret, but it's also no secret that Apple kind of overcharges on their RAM upgrades. So I went with the bare minimum of the 6-core configuration, which is 16 gigabytes. But even with that said, 16 gigabytes, that's a lot of memory, especially compared to my 12 gigabytes on my current Mac Pro. Now with that said, I will definitely be upgrading this in the near future to at least 32 gigabytes of memory. And that is just insane. I can still remember the day when 1 gigabyte of memory was a lot. 2 gigabytes, 12 gigabytes. So just imagine having 32 gigabytes of RAM at your disposal. It's just incredible. But it gets even better. I bumped up the 6-core configuration SSD storage from 256 gigabytes to 512 gigabytes. Now this is a big deal because as you know, the Mac Pro is not expandable in terms of internal hardware. So you are pretty much reliant on external hardware such as USB drives and Thunderbolt drives. So I wanted to play it safe from the beginning, so I figured why not bump it up from 256 gigs to 512 gigs. And of course, I'll still be investing in an external hard drive such as a 1 terabyte and a 2 terabyte for media storage reasons. Now this is where it gets really good. Just thinking about it makes me nerdgasm, so you know, watch out. Put on your nerdgasm shields or whatever. Now, as you probably know, the 4-core model of the Mac Pro comes with the D300 GPU. Dual GPUs, I should say. Dual. Every single Mac Pro config comes with dual GPUs, which is just incredible to think about. Now, going for this 6-core model, by default, it comes with dual AMD FirePro D500s with, I believe, 3 gigabytes of VRAM each, which is still amazing if you think about it. But with the extra funds I have in my Mac Pro campaign, again, which I'm incredibly grateful for, guys, I owe you my life, I figured, you know what? Why not go all out, especially with all the work I do between video editing, Photoshop, and yes, Photoshop does actually use the GPU horsepower nowadays, which is pretty sweet. And while who knows, I might even end up gaming on my Mac Pro. Maybe not within OS X directly, which yeah, is possible, but it's very possible that I could be installing Windows via Boot Camp at some point. Which brings me to the main points of this blurb or whatever. I opted for the AMD FirePro D700. Yes, the D700, and 2 of them. Just, oh my God, I can't even begin to express the raw horsepower that's going to come out of those GPUs. And each of those GPUs has 6 gigabytes of VRAM each. 6 gigabytes. Okay, so I mentioned I went this route for several reasons, such as video editing, Photoshop editing, and yes, I do both at the same time sometimes when I'm exporting and all that stuff and rendering effects, and then, graphic designing within Photoshop. It takes up a lot of horsepower on the GPU. But that's not the only reason I went that route. Another big deciding factor with me was 4K video and 4K editing. It is no secret that 4K editing is quickly coming down in price, so I can see myself getting a 4K monitor and a 4K video camcorder, saying video camera just sounds weird, within the next 2 years. So in other words, I basically wanted to future-proof myself with 4K editing because I will eventually have 4K videos up on YouTube. And actually, come to think of it, my GoPro Hero 3 Plus Black Edition, such a long name, does have full 4K support. But then again, like I said, I don't have a 4K monitor right now. I currently use my cinema display, but that will change at some point in the near future. And that right there, in my opinion, is the best part of the configuration I went for. Sure, the 6-core model is fine. 16 gigabytes of RAM is fine. 512 gigabytes of SSD storage is fine. Yes, all that stuff is insanely great as it is. Apple reference, do you get it? But it's the dual AMD FirePro D700 cards. Well, they're soldered. It's that part that gets me most excited. I cannot wait to see how that truly benefits everything I do on a regular basis. And finally, last but not least, because this Mac Pro is literally costing thousands of dollars, it'd be kind of stupid for me to overlook the fact that AppleCare exists. So yes, I went with 3 years of AppleCare. And there you go, that is my Mac Pro configuration. Now, you may have noticed that I did not mention a display, and that's honestly because most of the extra funds, and I'm talking most, I had like $20 left over, most of the extra funds went towards the D700 GPU upgrade because I figured that could benefit me more than a display right now. Any extra funds that do come into the campaign between today, as of recording this video, and a month from now, when the campaign eventually ends, those funds will be going towards a display, most likely the Apple Thunderbolt display. Now, I am interested in 4K displays, as I've made very clear in this video, but I'm not fully ready to jump on board with having a 4K display in my office, at least not yet. So I figured that's the best route I can take. Either that, or I might be looking into getting dual Dell displays, because Dell does make excellent displays for a fraction of the cost of the Thunderbolt display. But honestly, I would really like to have that whole Apple ecosystem on my desk. And I love my Apple Cinema display. I've had that thing since 2007 and it's been perfect, aside from a power outage and it being fried, but that was my fault because I didn't have on a surge protector. And thankfully, AppleCare covered it, but that's a whole other video. But still, with that said, I am open-minded, and if you guys have any ideas regarding the Thunderbolt display or any other displays that I should use, please comment below, because having dual displays is important to me. But as of starting out with this brand new setup, I think I'm just gonna have one Thunderbolt display, with eventually adding a second one maybe a month or two from now. And now, with all the configuration details aside, I do want to go over some additional notes, because I know there are people out there who might think the Mac Pro is overpriced, and you might be right in some regards, but I still wanted to take the time to express some facts and explaining to people about how the Mac Pro really isn't that overpriced. And actually, according to some articles I've read, if you spec out a similar PC, the Mac Pro is cheaper by thousands of dollars. So the first thing I want to mention is the AMD FirePro D700. It's called the D700 for the Mac Pro, but in general, I believe it's an AMD FirePro W9000. And if you look it up on Newegg, it currently sells for $3,400 for one of them. The fact that one of those cards costs more than the Mac Pro, the base model, that should kind of throw up a red flag. Well, not a red flag. A white flag? Is that a good color? Or that's surrender? Basically, that should get your attention, and I think that's amazing. Now, with that said, of course, you can get an AMD FirePro W9000 for much cheaper by going with another brand, but still, it is very important to keep that in mind. The fact that one of those cards costs over $3,000 from AMD themselves, that's a big deal. But of course, it does not stop there. I'm getting emails. A 512 gigabyte Samsung 840 Pro SSD normally costs $450 each. That alone is a large chunk of the Mac Pro's cost, and basically the entire cost of a Mac Mini. Just add like $120 onto that. Now, of course, I'm talking about 512 gigabytes. Of course, price is going to vary per storage capacity and brand name and where you buy it from, but still, that's a large chunk of the overall price of the Mac Pro. Now moving on, and I'm not sure this one, but I got this from an article. It's called the Asus Rampage 4-Gene Micro ATX motherboard. The actual cost is $280. And then there's the Silverstone FTO3-inch Strider 850 watts power supply, which costs $360, which is almost the cost of the 512 gigabyte Samsung SSD. And then finally, we have 32 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance DDR3 RAM, actual cost $360. That should be right anyway. It just happens to be the same cost as the power supply unit, but hopefully that's not a typo on my end. But either way, that should show you how cheap RAM truly has become. 32 gigabytes of RAM for $360, that's really not bad at all, and that's exactly why I will be upgrading from 16 to 32 in the near future. Now, with all that said, I do have to reiterate this. I mean, I don't want people taking this as some fanboy comment. I'm just putting this out there to show you how truly affordable the Mac Pro actually is when you put it alongside equivalent PC parts. And I'm by no means a PC building expert. I'm just simply reporting news that I've read online. And honestly, I found this very interesting because I've seen people say, oh, the Mac Pro is overpriced, the Mac Pro is not worth it. But if you truly do your research, you'll quickly find out that you're actually saving money with the Mac Pro. And don't forget, the Mac Pro is not intended as a regular computer. This thing is a workstation. It's gonna be blowing through projects, and I cannot wait to see how it performs in my office. And finally, I still wanna give a huge shout out to the Windows PC users out there. As much as I love Apple and all these prices I mentioned and all the facts and stuff that I've gone over, I fully do realize that Windows PCs are far more upgradable than this new Mac Pro ever will be. And that's a good thing. I mean, if you wanna swap out the motherboard, you can. If you wanna swap out the SSD, the graphics card, you can. On the Mac Pro, you cannot. I believe the only thing that you can use or replace is the RAM itself, which is obviously very simple. And I believe the CPU, which is actually socket-based, but I'm not sure how much you can truly do with that, because I've read newer processors might not even be compatible with the socket on the current Mac Pro. I know, guys, I'm throwing a ton of information out there. I just found it fascinating, both from a Mac user's perspective, as well as a Windows user's perspective. So now that all that information is crammed into your head, let's wrap up the video. My Mac Pro, as of this recording, is scheduled to ship in late March or sometime in April. So I will definitely have the Mac Pro before May. And that right there is awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on that thing. And don't forget, any extra funds that are raised through the Mac Pro campaign, all of those funds will be going towards a Thunderbolt display, possible adapters that I'll need, maybe a keyboard and mouse, anything like that. Oh, and one more thing, I have to make this very clear. This campaign is not just about me. I mean, if you do contribute to the Mac Pro campaign, not only do I appreciate it very much, but it's also a way of helping you out, getting the word out about your brand, product, service, your website, Twitter, Facebook, anything you want. And it's also extremely affordable. I mean, some of these prices you're getting through the perks are 50% off of what I normally offer over at davidfranco.com/services. So I'm just putting that out there. If you do contribute to the campaign, you're not only helping myself out, but you're helping yourself out as well. So guys, that's it. I've talked enough. I just wanted to share this awesome news with you guys. I cannot wait to see what my future holds. It's going to be exciting times, and I'm extremely anxious to share it with each and every one of you. It's going to be an awesome ride, and expect more details in my weekend vlog, which is going live on Monday, possibly Tuesday, depends on my schedule. But until then, guys, have an awesome weekend. Thank you for your continued support. You're all amazing, and I will see you in my next video. Peace.